Good morning, everybody. I'm excited this morning. We have superstar agent Ron Anderson on the show. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning. Good morning,
It,
Chris. Good morning, Eddie.
Hey,
th-
good morning, Ron. How are you?
We're good. Everything's good.
Awesome. So, I'm super excited. We completed the first week of Saratoga Meet, and having you on board and having Joel as the leading jockey so far, and in wins and money earned, had to be a special week for both you and Joel and the whole team, right?
Well, especially up here, like I tell everybody, this is not like any other time of the year. Pretty much the whole world is kind of watching what's going on. So you want to break running, obviously. And there's a lot of intensity and build up to getting here. So lucky enough, we left the gate here real well. And yeah, it's all exciting so far, but this is not a sprint. This is a bit of a marathon, and lots of things can happen. So keep our fingers crossed and see what happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember. I've known Joel for got to know him for a while ago. Probably first time I met him was down at Gulfstream. I want to say maybe 12, 15 years ago, something like that. And every day, here up here at Saratoga, he walks into the paddock and number one, he's always the last jockey that walks into the paddock, by the way. I don't know why that is, or if he's studying, or if that's just his way. But when he walks in, he's like, he's always looking for me, and he's like, all right, I'm trying to get away from Eddie. I don't have time. I got to go talk to the trainer, get my instructions,
Right.
and get on the horse. So, but yeah, I've been there every day. It was a I don't want to say it was a rough go, but it's Saratoga. He didn't get a win the first day, but since then he's been off and running, and obviously you also have Johnny V. So talk about your history with Joel, because you've been together with him for quite a long time, and I believe you just got Johnny. Was it last year? So talk about those two, because you got two of the best jocks in the game.
Well, the both of them are world class riders, and they make what I do pretty easy. Um, Joel, I've been with since 2011, and we've had a great run. Um, he's just different. Um, I think everybody knows who I've worked for between Garrett, Jerry Bailey, Gary Stevens, Chris Antley. I mean, I've had an awfully good run with some awfully talented people, but I'm just going to talk about Joel's, not only his ability, but his demeanor is just different. I mean, I've had people that hold ropes for 20, 30 years uh, that come to me and say, yeah, that Jock Joel, he's my favorite rider. Well, thank you very much. I mean, my favorite rider jockey ever. Really? He's the type of kid I tell people, if you're in his presence at all, you can't help but root for him when you walk away. He's just, even the other riders, I think when they can't win, they root for Joel, and that's a pretty special position to be in when you're competing with somebody every day. And then his abilities and his way with he's got, I call him magical hands. He's got a way of horses that want to pull or tug, which are really difficult to ride. He just has a way to get them to kind of come back to him, and it's a gift. It has nothing to do with ability. It's a gift. So he makes things easy, and then his demeanor and everything's not a hothead. He doesn't get upset about anything. He's always the same. Which in this business, you don't want to get too high, and you don't want to get too low, because there's going to be low times and there's going to be high times, and you kind of want to keep on that even keel. Um, Fortunate enough with Johnny, I hooked up with him. Well, it's over 2 years ago now, almost 2.5 years. He won two derbies. One of them was obviously taken away, but he's not looking to ride cheaper horses, and he's looking to ride the graded stakes. And we've had a pretty nice run. He and Joel were finalists for Eclipse Awards a year before this, so that was a feather in his hat, in his cap there. And he's easy to work for too. He's all class. He gets on with everybody. Neither one of them second guesses what I do, which is good for me. So I'm good. Look, I'm really good, but I'm fortunate too. I've been in the right places at the right time with the right people. So it's all good.
Well, and speaking of Johnny, because I could talk about Joel, forever. I was actually when he won a race on Saturday. I was sitting there talking to him right outside the jockey's room after the race, and he didn't have a ride in the following race, and Irad and Jose Ortiz both came up, gave him a big hug, said great ride, great win, and so did Dylan Davis and a couple other jockeys swinging by. So I not only is he loved by the people, he's loved by the jockeys in the room as well. And going on what you said, he's the most likable, one of the most likable jockeys out there. He's always got time for the fans. He's always got a smile on his face. But I think he's got a little Michael Jordan in him when he sits on a horse and gets ready. A flip of the switch happens, and he's all business once the gates open. And you can talk on that too. But I do want to mention something about Johnny, because he's kind of like the spokesperson for the jockeys right now as well, with everything that's going on with be it Disabled Jockey Fund, HISA, and things like that. So, I mean, he's not only a top jockey, but he's also got a responsibility in representing all the jocks in the room as well.
Look, every jockey, not in this country, in the world, should bow down to Johnny, what he's done. Nobody has any idea the time that he has put in with calls and Zoom calls and preaching to, the higher ups and trying to explain things. And then, in all the time I've been an agent, most presidents of the guild, which he is, they last, a half a 4 or 5 years. And then they, between guys from obscure places calling them with problems and all the outside stuff that goes on that they are required to do, they get sick. He's been doing this like 20 years. I can't even fathom anybody being committed for that long. So everybody, today he'll be on, his Zoom calls and this, that, and the other, fielding all. He never, doesn't have time for everybody, and dealing with administration and people sometimes that don't understand things that he has to explain. Like I said, I don't have a clue how he gets through all this. He's just different, and a lot of the riders do understand what he does, and they do very much respect him. But the whole industry, I think, needs to respect what Johnny does.
Totally
agree.
Totally agree. I think that's from a fan perspective. Maybe some of them just don't know. From a sports perspective, from people who follow the sport, the handicappers that love the sport, I don't think most of them know everything that Johnny does. I've gotten to understand what he does just from knowing him, knowing you, knowing Joel, and people telling me. And like you, I don't know how he does it. I really don't. There's only 24 hours in the day, and he's up early and he goes to sleep late, and I just don't know how he does it.
He fields a lot of what I would call just BS and stuff that most people just throw their hands up in the air and say, look, I've had enough. But he's in there. He's in there for the long haul, and he's in there for the right reasons, to help the disabled jocks, to, promote this and that, and to explain to the people that don't understand exactly different things and aspects of the game and of the what would you say, rules and regulations and policies. He's different now. I don't know how, like I said, like you said, I don't know how he does it. I really don't.
I got two quick questions for you, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris, because I know he's got some interesting questions he'd like to ask you. But first off, I have difficult time explaining to people. I grew up playing all sports. I played baseball at a high level, played football up until high school, and was a professional golfer, more of a club professional. I will tell you that jockeys are the most underappreciated athletes. People don't understand how strenuous it is and what talent it is to do that. And I say that because, and you see this on Twitter, Ron, all the time, I'm sure. People criticize jockeys' rides, and it's some of it's because they lost a race or whatever. I've been on the back of a horse. I did for a very short period of time. I learned how to exercise ride a horse with a trainer called Michael Pino, because I grew up in Maryland, and I was doing it with him at Laurel and Bowie for like maybe 6 months. And that's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, riding a thoroughbred at that high speed, controlling them. And now I couldn't even imagine how to do it in a race. Explain to the people how great athletes jockeys are.
Well, here I have two stories about what you've just gone over. Dr. Robert Curlin, if anybody's from California, they're probably familiar with Curlin Job Medical. Dr. Curlin was a great friend of all of ours in California back in the day. And he once was quoted as saying, now let's see if people can understand. He worked on hockey players, golfers, baseball, football, any athlete on the planet he and his team worked on. And he once said that jockeys are the best athletes in the world, bar none. They have, they're controlling a 1,100-pound animal. Most of them weigh about 112 to 15 pounds. And he was quoted as saying that. So that's a huge statement. Secondly, when you started in with jockeys and criticizing, I was fortunate enough to work for somebody named Fernando Toro, which people from California might be familiar with from years past. If I'm ever considered good, it's probably with my tutelage with him. He told me when I first went to work for him, jockeys get way more credit when they win than they should, and way more blame when they get beat. So you have to keep the better riders, the more elite riders anywhere, they make less mistakes, but they all make mistakes. It's not an exact science. And, leading back to what you said, it's difficult just to ride one, let alone think through the process of a race, where to go, where not to go, when to move, when not to move. There's just so many intricacies of being a jockey. It's mind-boggling. And these guys are world class. The riders in New York right now, I'm going to put them very much in the class, the same sentence as the riders of the 80s and 90s in California, where you had Lafitte, Pink Eye Jr. Yeah, his son does the show on Fox now. But, Sandy Hawley and Fernando Toro, who I was for, Chris McCarron, Eddie Delahousse, Gary Stevens, who I represented from 90 to 2000. This was some crazy talented colony, and I'm going to put them right in the same category as them. These kids here, Pratt came in. He's a world-class rider. We've got the Ortiz kids, Luis Saez. This is a talented bunch of people, and fortunate enough, we get to work and watch them every day.
Yeah, it's Saratoga's special. You do have the world-class jockeys here, and I love that you went back to the 80s of the great California jockeys, and you can even throw some of the jocks over on the East Coast. You could throw in Angel Cordero. You could throw in Kent DeSormo, who is maybe as talented as I've ever seen, and Stevie Cawthon, who I thought is easily one of the greatest of all times, because he won here and then he went over to Europe and won there. But I'll tell you what, I do have one other question, but I'm going to turn it over to Chris, because I can ask my question later.
Ron, I wanted to ask, and actually that was one of the questions I was just going to ask you, is like, where does this era stand right now in the 2020s compared to, I mean, you've seen many decades of jockeys, but do you think this one is right up there?
This colony right now, yes, absolutely. It's head and head with the best riding colonies that I've ever seen. Now, I don't really want to date myself, but this January, I'm doing this for 50 years.
Wow.
I'm 49 this year and 50 next year. You know, I've been fortunate enough to win 38 Breeders' Cup races. No one's even close. I think Mikey's at about 26 or 27. I think there's been 38 Breeders' Cups, so I've been fortunate enough to win one year with the guys I've represented. So I've seen a lot. But these kids, these kids are, you know, they are talented. They can do some stuff on a horse's back now. Very fortunate. Everybody's fortunate to be witnessing all this. And when somebody blows their $20 and they want to knock somebody's ride, I try and explain to people that want to get heated about. There are bad rides, which they all can put up a bad ride. But more often than not, they're unlucky rides. It has to do with the way things unfold. You know, that you have to play the cards that are dealt to you. And sometimes, like I said, it has nothing to do with a bad ride. It's just an unfortunate, unlucky ride, which people, you know, they don't want to listen sometimes. It's a bad ride. He rode bad. No. You're wrong. Go watch the race. Of which anymore, there's a lot of people that can't even watch a race that, to my, you know, understanding or liking, that they really, you know, it's all about stats and it's all about, you know, them cashing a ticket. And if not, they're going to throw somebody under the bus. And the jock's the most logical person to do that.
I think you could look at this year's Kentucky Derby and go, great ride, very lucky, fortunate that every hole opened up for him. And instead of criticizing other jockeys, why not just praise the jockey that just won on a fantastic ride? You have to have a little bit of luck on your side. But let's not blame some other jockey who you thought should have won the race.
You know, Joel rode a $1 million race. And, you know, the other person was Pratt. Pratt followed Joel. And, you know, as being the horse to beat, he thought I was the horse to beat. And he was obviously going to be behind us. They both rode, you know, spectacular races.
Yeah.
And they both got outrun. There's no two ways about it. The winner won, as he did, and a nice horse. And, you know, it wasn't our day to win. So these things happen. It's horse racing.
Ron, I wanted to ask, so, you know, obviously dark days are Monday and Tuesdays. I have a feeling that that's not a day off for you. I have a feeling your phone probably rings more those days than what does an average day look like for you? Like, what happens? When does the phone start ringing off the hook?
Well, you know, you know, the whole game's changed, obviously, since I first started, especially since the pandemic, because we don't physically have to be anywhere. You know, some part of the year I spend in Florida, and nobody knows where I am, and they don't care where I am. You know, they text and call. So the average day starts, you know, around 6 with guys starting to text. Are you open here? Are you open there? Can Johnny work one, you know, tomorrow, or Joel work one on Wednesday? Like, I got texts this morning about work situations for the rest of the week. Then the new book's out last night. So I'm trying to I have a printout of the stuff that both of them have been writing. So I try and plot that in the book, which I call as hands-on stuff. And then I have to field other guys asking about races where I might have something else, trying to weigh which one's better. Because at the end of the day, I got to ride the best horse, usually. Sometimes you get in a political situation, like I'm obligated to, obviously, Christoph, like a Billy Mott sometimes, a Chad Brown sometimes, where I might have to take a lesser call in the race just because I'm politically tied to them, and they win a lot of races. So you're going to ride a 5-1 shot when you've been offered a 5-2 shot for one of them, because the business end of it just makes more sense. So it's not an easy day, especially up here. run around in the morning. We all have golf carts. I generally get back here 11-ish after leaving at 7-ish. Then shower, get ready for a draw, and then participate. I'm a guy that likes to be at the track, so I participate, especially up here. I participate in the races all day, visit with the jocks at least once, sometimes a couple times, just for some quick input with, just they're not telling me, like, you better ride this one back. They're just, I get some feel for, what they might have to say about one. And then you're out to dinner a few times a week here with friends or clients or whatever. And then it's back to work the next day. So there's not really any days off up here. Like, I'm visiting with you guys now. As soon as I get off here, I'm doing the next condition book, which starts on the 4th or whatever it is.
So it's nonstop.
It's nonstop. And you know what? It's a good nonstop, because if they're not pursuing you, then you're in trouble. You don't have any action. So
Ron, let me ask you this and this is coming from me as a handicapper standpoint, where I'll be looking at a race and I'll see, well, hey, Joel's ridden this horse a few times, Johnny's ridden this horse a few times, or Flavian's ridden this horse a few times, and now they're listed on another horse. So I'm sure there's some loyalty and politics involved in that, but I'd love to hear your explanation of what goes into when a jockey, is it a trainer decision? Is it a jockey decision? Is it an agent owner decision? There's got to be something there.
There's all kinds of dynamics involved with these decisions. All I can tell you from my own end, I don't know what anybody else does. Like I said that all the time. I see decisions and things being done, and I think, what went into this? This doesn't even make sense. But from my end, let's say 9 out of 10 times, I'm trying to ride the best horse, especially up here. That's the hard part of being an agent, which I'm. First off, you got to answer the guy that's signing your check. So Johnny or Joel, I have to answer to them. Secondly, I have to try and ride the best horse, or they're going to say, well, what's going on here, or what happened here? So you got to try and ride the best horse. Then this is the trickiest part of all. Sometimes you're offered 2 or 3 or 4 horses in one race. Well, the guys that you don't ride for, you got to keep them happy. So the next time they have a live horse, they want to come back and ask you again. That's the tricky part, especially the guys that I've had, because, these guys, 2, 3, 4 horses in one race, sometimes I've been asked. Jerry Bailey, the same. Gary Stevens, the same. Chris Antley, Garrett Gomez. They're high-profile riders. Then, you want to be in the right, sometimes, state when you're, like Joel's going to the Monmouth Park on Saturday to ride Gufo and Safi Joseph's colt in the Haskell. Now, was I giving up too much in New York with him to go there? No. And I actually got Johnny on a couple of them because he's going to be at Socha. There's a lot of things going on. The other day, Joel just got beat on a horse that I expected to ride back. The trainer had a different idea. The owner had a different idea. I figured out which one was which, but I ended up on a Chad Brown horse that won the race. So, it all works out in the long run, but there's no blueprint here to what we do or what I do. I can't sit you down or, Davis down, or you guys are familiar with, or his mother, Nancy. I couldn't explain to you how to do what I do. It's kind of trial and error. And like I say, you might say one thing to one trainer and he might be fighting mad at you. You might say the same thing to somebody else. They're fine with it. So you got to know the intricacies of the personalities, when to approach people, when not to approach people, what you can say, what you can't say. So like I said, I've done this a long time, and it takes a long time to figure it all out.
Politics.
By the way, I told Chris this morning, I go, hey, I'm going to call Davis and try to get him on, because what Davis is doing really, really interests me.
You need to.
Oh, well, we're going to have
This
Davis
is
on. We are going to get
something now.
Davis on here because what he's doing. And by the way, I didn't meet Davis until last year, and like I consider him a friend now. He and I hit it off right away. He's such a great kid.
He's a quality kid for sure, not because I'm involved with him, but and he's working on something that when they get all the ducks in order here, I think this is going to revolutionize the soundness and the game as far as, red flags horses that have little things going on that sometimes you can't pick up
Oh,
on. They've been using it in Australia for a number of years, and
yeah.
what I know of it so far through him, it's state of the art stuff. Really,
He's
really
blown me
something.
away. He's blown me away with what he's told me about it, and I know that he was. I guess he was hopeful of getting to Australia after Saratoga last year, or by the end of the year, or even this year. But what he's told me, what he's doing is. And Chris doesn't know that I just briefly told him a little bit about it, and we'll get into it. We'll have Davis on because I think that'll
You need to
blow some
pursue all
people's
this.
minds.
You need to
Very
pursue all this because it's so progressive. It's so, fresh. It's so new. It's so beneficial to the entire industry, not just the owners and the trainers and stuff, but the fans. In theory, at some point, you're never going to see a horse get injured on the racetrack because all the little things that can go on before they get in the gate are all going to be red flagged, and it's very exciting, just the spot, the parts that I know about it.
excellent. Hey, I got one more question for you, Ron, and I'm going to drop a quote on you because Jerry Bailey said this. I didn't say this. Jerry Bailey said this. Ronnie is successful because he's smarter than anyone else. He's able to interpret the data from the numbers, speed numbers, patterns. If your agent's wrong, it can cost you a lot of money. Now, where I'm going with this, and you mentioned a little bit about it. You probably get multiple horses in races sometimes. What do you have to
Oh,
do as
absolutely.
as an agent to
Yeah.
sit down and figure out this one's
Um,
going to be better
I
than that
use
one?
figure. I use raggeds and figures, but I use the racing form. I use a lot of things as tools to try and refine what my decisions are. Um, there's a feel. You have a feel for that. You have a feel for weather conditions. You have a feel for distances, which is very important when you're trying to pick through everything. And then the personalities of the game are, the other side that's super important. So there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle that we try and put together.
Okay. Eddie, this is my last question. I know we're running up against the clock. I just wanted to say, Ron, from everything that I've seen, I've read about you, and you're an easy interview to do. You're a very positive person. You don't dwell on the negative. Listen, if you didn't love your job, I get a feeling that 50 years later, you wouldn't still be doing this. Um, but
Ron, before we go, Ron, I'm gonna plead to my friendship with Davis to keep you on for just a couple more minutes to ask you a couple more questions if you have the time.
No problem. No problem.
All right. So I don't know the exact rules behind this, but as an agent, I believe you're not allowed in the paddock or the winner's circle. And why is that? If I'm correct in asking that.
Well, the paddock is something um, that has to do with, I think, claiming or fingering horse for whatever reason. The winner's circle, actually, they've eased a lot of that the last few years, but I still probably haven't been in 20 win pictures, 25 win pictures in my entire life, because I don't think it's a place for me. I honestly think the winner's circle is for the immediates, and I don't feel them, even though I'm connected to the jockey. I don't feel like I belong there. Um, but the paddock is more of a restriction because they don't want guys down there, including me, looking at horses' legs and marking legs and this, that, and the other thing, which, it's okay. I don't want to be there anyway. It's kind of a tense time. The owners are there. They're kind of awkwardly being introduced to the jockey. The jockey's getting ready to get on a horse. I never bother Joel or Johnny as they're going to the paddock because they did their homework. They're trying to focus in on what they're doing. they got to go through this. Here's this owner and this owner's friend and they're still trying to focus on, is the three going to break inside of me or am I going to get shuffled back? Jerry Bailey was probably the best rider that I had for making 2 or 3 ideas or plans in his head before he came to the paddock. If that one breaks and this one doesn't, I'm going to do this. If they don't break and I go, I'm going to do this. He was a master at being in the right place because he studied so well and he knew the tendencies of all the other riders. This jock will move there. This jock's not the same as that one out of the gate. So, but as far as the winner's circle, like I said, they've eased all that.
Well, Ron, you don't have to worry about bothering Johnny V or Joel going to the paddock. I do all of that for you. I totally do.
That's a fact.
but
right.
I got to tell you a quick story. Back in, I forget the exact year, but I'm going to guess that it was 90 or 91. No, that's not true. I want to say 93. But I was at Laurel Park with I was a golf pro at a course in Maryland, and I went out with the members took me out there, and it was Breeders' Cup Day, and back then I was in my late 20s. I wasn't making a ton of money. I had a budget of what I could do at the track, and had a decent day. Was up a little bit, and had made my Breeders' Cup bets, and I came back down. I sat down, and I looked up at the board, and I believe there was 3 horses listed at 99-1, and I just looked down, and I go, Jerry Bailey's on a 99-1. I went up to the window, didn't look at anything else. I go, give me 10 across on this horse. And obviously, you know where I'm going with this. It was Archon. How did that all come about?
I don't want to hear about this. This is one of the worst things. I've got a million good stories and I got a few bad ones. This is a bad one. I worked for Gary Stevens. He was riding a horse called Bertrando.
Yes.
In those days, there was no simulcasting. So when Gary would go east, I would just take a flight from LA, go up to Las Vegas, watch the races, leave at 7 in the morning, watch the races, fly back that night. Well, Bertrando's running in the Jockey Club Gold Cup. He's 6-5 in muddy track, which he loved the mud. He's 6-5, and I walk over and I look at the futures, and they got Bertrando at 10-1 for the Breeders' Cup Classic. So I'm thinking to myself, well, let me get this straight. This horse is 6-5 today. He's going to gallop. He's going back to California, where he's from. He's going to be 2-1, 5-2 on Breeders' Cup Day, and they're offering me 10-1. I'm not going to tell you how much money I had in my pocket, but I took everything that I had except for like $20 to get home on, and I bet on Bertrando. So here they line up. Bertrando's on the lead. Gary spurts away at the quarter pole, and I could hear this in my dreams since then. And here comes Archon. Who the flip is Archon? Jerry Bailey to this day tells a story. Pulling up, he didn't even know the horse's name.
Yes,
and he beats me
I've
and
heard
pays
that.
$260 some or whatever it was. Cost me a fortune plus the Breeders' Cup Classic. So that's a bad story. Really.
Well,
bad.
I didn't mean to bring up a bad memory, but hey, Ron, listen. Right. We really appreciate your time and jumping on board. As Chris said at the beginning, we could talk to you for an hour and a half, 2 hours. Maybe we'll have you on again. But best of luck with the meet. I root for Joel every race. Everybody on Twitter for sure knows that. But not just because of the friendship, but he's a great jock. And obviously, Johnny V, you got 2 Hall of Fame jockeys. So wish you the best of luck with everything. Thank you so much for your time. Chris, go ahead and wrap it up.
Yeah,
thanks,
Ron.
Eddie. Thanks.
Ron, thank you so much. And I just, you're a fan of the game first, and that's what I really love about you and what you do and your passion and, learning more about you. But thank you for your time today. You're an awesome interview, and I enjoy listening to every second of all your information.
Thanks for having me, guys. Take
And
care.
make
We'll
sure
see
you
you out
tell
there.
make sure you tell Davis that we want him on, and
Perfect.
we have to. He has to tell his story because it's so good.
It's fascinating,
Awesome.
and I hope you guys can hook up real quick.
We will
Thank
for
you.
sure. Thanks
Thank
again,
you,
Ron.
guys.
Thanks,
Appreciate
guys.
you.
Thanks a lot. Have a good day.